Hello, good morning. It's Billy Goat Wargaming back again for a small update. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to Von Ketteringham for the shout out on his channel. That was great to hear the channel getting mentioned. Thanks also to Wargaming with Gary for his kind comments, and I recommend you check out both of those YouTube channels if you haven't already. Far more professional and established than this one. However, I thought today I'd just give you a quick update on where we are with the game. And you'll notice I've changed the set. I'm not sure that pink sheet was doing wonders for the light, to be honest. But anyway, on to some updates for the painting. And there's a real plethora of things that are ongoing at the moment. So I think I showed you this ship previously. This is a merchant flute from the Peter Pig range, which is a medium ship. As you can see, it's not finished, but it's been sprayed brown, glued together. I've given the sails a bit of a dry brush. I'm not entirely happy with those at the moment. You'll notice there's a slight tone difference between this sail and the main sail there, but that's due to some washing experiments with the various inks. But I've got some detailing to do here on the windows of the ship. Here, on the back piece here. There you go, that's better. And on the deck also, but shouldn't take too much effort. Just based on a piece of vinyl self-adhesive floor tile. These are fantastic for basing. I'm going to talk about this material a lot more very soon as a base for scenery and figures and models. So that's underway. I've also found some American Civil War Union bases. Now, I'm not sure why I've got these, but I thought I'd get them painted up as soon as I'm in the mood for painting. Peter Pig, obviously, as is everything I'm going to show you today, actually. So I've gone back to the black undercoat, which I've not used for maybe 15 years or more. But what I decided, because previously I was spraying the figure in the main colour. In the case for Union troops, I'd spray them in this ultramarine blue from Army Painter, and then paint on all the other, block in all the other bits and pieces. So the sky blue for the trousers, the flesh, the browns, and black. And call me a slow learner, but it dawned on me that I'm spending an awful lot of time doing all the fiddly black bits, like the straps, the belts, the pouches, the canteens, the shoes, the peak at the front of the forage cap, not a kepi, I must remember that. Whereas with the black undercoat, as long as you use a brighter shade of the colour that you're wanting to use, it works pretty well. So as you can see on, you may be able to see on these figures here, and this isn't perfect painting. I will always add the caveat to any figures that I show you. These are gaming pieces designed to be viewed from this sort of distance, not here right under the camera. But with the this mid blue, I guess it is, I'm just touching in around the various belts, the sleeve there, a little bit on the front of the coat. So you're not covering the whole figure, you're leaving the black, which is the straps and the pouches and the canteen, etc. The same with the trousers, leaving the shoes. And the same with the rifle and the face, which is the fur brown that I mentioned in the last video. So to do on these now, I've just got the flesh to touch in, the metal for the bayonet, and a white strap across the back here, which is the canteen strap. The other straps are black, straps and belts are black. The canteen on the side here can either be metal coloured, or it was covered in a canvas, a blue canvas as well, so I could do that. But and once they're done, once that's done, they will be washed with a darkish brown, a sepia type, maybe a sepia colour, and then the blue, just the blue, will be highlighted, and maybe the face as well. I don't know. The face, actually, the face will get a wash, a flesh wash, so that won't be highlighted. But they are very, very quick to knock out. These are for Civil War battles, the American Civil War rules from Peter Pig. You may notice a theme. So this is the rest of the infantry, or the majority of the infantry, for the 1940 company that I'm painting for the early war games day at Entoyment in January. And these have been, as I explained in the last video, same painting method. Where they've been sprayed black, given a fairly heavy dry brush of a grey to pick out the various straps and bits of equipment on the back of the figure there. Move that out of the way, that might be a bit better. There we go. And these have had the field grey colour added to the tunic, and you can see there it's really just the sleeve, the bit of the tunic at the front that you can see underneath the belt, and a little bit at the back here as well, which is the back of the tunic. And I've also painted in the gas mask container. So they are in progress, not far from being done. So just as an example, let's pick up a rifle base. That's the two versions. So this one's just had the field grey of the tunic added. Other details will be added in. The military shader wash from Army Painter will be put over that, and I'll just go back over the high points on the sleeves and the trousers and the helmet with the base colour, and I'm quite liking the look of that at the moment. Next is actually a finished unit. Now these are Wars of the Roses for Peter Pig's new version of Bloody Barons. Quite pleased with these. They're painted in these are retinue units, so got some equipment, some decent equipment and some decent clothing. They've also got the livery coats, so you can see this is a halved black and red livery for some lord or other. I'm not sure who would have that. These were spray coated in a dark brown that I picked up from the range, and is a very good dark brown to base up these, to be the base coat for these figures. I'll use that for rebs for the American Civil War in the future. I've got this thing where I don't paint black on a rebel figure, so they'll always have brown shoes and brown belts. Yeah, that's just a peculiarity anyway. I've done that for years. So here's a base of archers, nice little grass tuft there. The basing is the same style of basing that I've tried out, which is this imitation, which is apparently the sincerest form of flattery of the Luke APS stuff. So it's sand, a bit of grit, mixed in with some static grass, and then PVA on the base, sprinkled on. These had a brown base already. I talked about that in the last video. I think it's come out really nice. With the addition of a couple of tufts, I'm quite pleased with this actually. It looks quite natural as opposed to the standard that I talked about in the last video, where this is what you will see for the majority of war games figures. So that's a unit of 12 figures for the new Bloody Barons game. That is a unit in the rules. All bases I've got some form of are able to shoot and fight. So I'm not entirely sure whether to have independent archer bases and build bases like these guys. I'm not quite sure yet, because I might use other rules, I don't know. This is obviously the command base. You've got the leader there. This figure's from the bodyguard pack. I think he's great, fully armoured or fully harnessed with his poleaxe, and obviously he's going to be carrying a standard. And here is the base of archers. So in the new Bloody Barons rules, a formation this represents a unit in formation. They fight as wards in the new rules, so there might be 3 or 4 units in that ward. But this is a unit in order or in formation. When they fall out of order, they fall back into a formation similar to this, and only the front row can shoot when it comes to some bow fire. So there'll be a lot more on that as these videos go on by, because for the next War Games Weekender in November next year, I'll be doing the Battle of Taunton. These figures will be for that, and I need to decide what I'm going to do about this basing, because obviously Taunton was fought in a snowstorm. Previously I've sprinkled salt or flock over a base just to represent it being in on a snowy plain, and then just shaking it off at the end of the game. That's worked quite well, rather than dedicate these bases to be snow bases. So that's all the figure painting. I'll just move these out of the way and swap in something I've never done before. I'll just catch a glimpse of it here. So the Peter Pick's Spanish Civil War rules, bayonets and ideology. I've got 2 forces for those. They are anarchist militia and nationalist regular army. You need quite, it's basic, the game is set around a town generally, and you need quite a few buildings for it. Now I've bought quite a few of the old SHQ buildings, the resin buildings. They've been available for some years. The casting isn't great on them, and rather than spend an absolute fortune on those, I thought, do you know what, most Peninsula buildings are really just boxes with the very distinctive Pantal roofing. So I thought I'm going to have a go at making some of those myself. So these are really just very rough prototypes. Again, I will continue with the caveat that these are gaming pieces and not display pieces. These aren't the sort of things that people would rave about in a magazine or show off or whatever, but these are going to serve a purpose for the amount of times that I'll play the game, which may be 2, 3, 4 times a year. Some card mock-ups of these type of buildings, whilst hoping to get them to look nice, and they're very serviceable. I'm not going to worry too much about accuracy, as long as it looks like an urban Spanish building, or rural Spanish building, even Spanish rural town. That'll do for me. So they are very simply made out of serial card boxes. I did cut doors and windows out of a couple of these, but I'm not entirely sure that's necessary, because as you can see on this one, we've got the shutters here, and in fact, looking at some images, there aren't many buildings with shutters. So I think the next group of buildings I do will be without shutters. But I've got the lintels here and the window ledge to define the window, and I'll just paint that in. So the buildings will get a coat of, once the basic format and shape has been built, I'm adding in these roofs using corrugated card. Now again, it doesn't look exactly like pan tiling, but I think once painted up, dry brushed, it's going to have a passable resemblance to what I want it to look like, and it's costing me practically nothing. The cereal I'm enjoying eating. The corrugated card is just some I picked up from a craft shop for absolute pence. I think it was £2 for 10 sheets or something like that. So for the amount I'm using, these buildings are probably around about 3p in materials, I would guess. So once the basic shape's been made, I'm then using a watered down polyfiller to create the texture on. So I've used some matchsticks there for the doorway. I've really mixed it up in how I've made these builds. I've even done a ridge tile there. I'm not sure I'm going to carry on doing ridge tiles. There's a little cover over the doorway there. So this is ready now to spray. It'll be sprayed in the dark brown that I'm using to spray the Wars of the Roses figures in. And then it's just a case of dry brushing and blackening out the windows and colouring in the doors. And because the Spanish Civil War rules have urban templates of 12 inches by 6 as the town pieces, and I think you use 6 of them. Let's just use this ruler here. So that's 12 inches there by 6. That is the typical template. I'm going to do 6-inch squares. So how many do I need? 6. So I'll need 12 of these 6-inch squares. And what I'm going to do is permanently affix these buildings. So this is a little outhouse that is going to join on to the side of there to make that a bit more interesting. Another little outhouse here for there to make some interesting building shapes. But so these might have 2 buildings on like this, and I'll put some wall around the edge. Might have a little track or pathway going through it. There's one here. I've done a little courtyard. There's some cobbled stone effect here just from wallpaper. I've ripped as a sample off some from B&Q, and I've got plenty of that from a sample to last me forever, really. I put a little bit on the walls as well there, just to add some texture, as though the stucco has crumbled away, leaving the brickwork underneath. So these will sort of be built up to create a town. This is a small chapel I've made. I've gone to town on this a little bit. I could do with a little crucifix there. I'm not sure where I'm going to get that from. I actually put some, I don't know if you can see that there, some plastic for the windows, but I'm probably going to spray over that anyway. And I think once this is textured up, you've got a nice little round window there. Once this is textured up, these matchsticks will blend in with the core frontispiece here, and the front of the chapel. I'll do something fancy for the doors. I've actually put this on a cobbled base piece using the wallpaper, and that'll dry brush very nicely. That'll probably sit on one on its own. What I might do as well is build up some levels to these pieces, and I certainly want, because one of the objectives in the game it can be a sort of isolated church or something on a 6x4. I'll build that up and put a little pathway going up to it, and intend to put something like this tower that I've made onto that. The roof isn't great. It's quite difficult doing this sort of 4-way leaning in roof shape, but again, it will do. Again, I've put some cobble bits there. I'll get some filler over that to show that it's overgrown. Done some steps there. I'll put some capstones or whatever on this this bit here, whatever that's called, and that would sit on a sort of raised rocky area with a pathway leading up to it, just to make it look nice. So you can knock these out in minutes, really, because it's just 4 walls and a roof, and then some detailing for these these windows. As I say, I'll probably leave off shutters for the most part on the other ones. I did worry about warping, but it's pretty much held its shape here, this one that's been covered in filler. There's a slight bowing, I guess, if you're going to be completely critical, but you're not going to notice that once it's glued down on a base board. So yeah, that's the project that's underway to complete. I need to just trim these roofs down just so they're a bit more flush with the buildings, but that's it. Yeah, so that's my update. Christmas is coming, so how much hobby time I'm going to have between now and Christmas, I don't know. But these are priority to get these built, along with the early war Germans that I showed you earlier, to get those done for the game stage. There's one other thing I wanted to quickly show you. This arrived in the post. Everybody's been having Black Friday sales, haven't they? And tempting us to part with hard-earned cash. So this came up at 50% off. I hope you can see that. That's just... There we go. So this is the Plastic Soldier Company Battle of Britain game. Battle of Britain simulates the epic air battles of 1940, July to October, between planes of Hermann Göring's Luftwaffe and Great Britain. Players will either command the German Luftwaffe or the British RAF. As the Luftwaffe commander, a player must carefully plan, organise and coordinate flights and send the German Luftwaffe on dangerous missions over Great Britain. As the British commander, a player must decide where and when to hazard his meagre fighter forces to stop the seemingly limitless German bombers and save Britain from the possibility of invasion. So it's absolutely great. So it's a strategical type game. I've watched one or two YouTube videos of it being played. It looks great fun. Quite a few plastic planes in there to enjoy painting or not, as the case may be. They also had a deal on selling 120 1/300th aeroplanes. And look at these. I've no idea what most of these are, but and they possibly aren't the greatest models in the world, but as game pieces I think they're ideal. These are obviously the various German bombers. A little bit of warping there, but that'll get sorted out with some hot water. And then the good guys here, loads of Spitfires and Hurricanes, and for this lot, £6.50. So you can't get cheaper than that. Well, free's cheaper, I suppose. But okay, I hope you've enjoyed that. It's rambled on a lot again. It's 23 minutes. Sorry about that. I will try and cut these videos down. I know not everybody's got 20 minutes to sit and watch me ramble on. But hope your hobby's going well, and I'll speak to you next time.